there you are. Wondering what's going on, eh? A bit of bad news there, I'm afraid. Your colony ship was inexplicably knocked out of skip space and forced to complete its journey at sublight speeds. This means that you and every other colonist on the Hope have been in suspended animation for 70 years, give or take.
The Outer Worlds is an action RPG released back in 2019. We found the game to be a classic case of a product squandering its potential, but now that the developer has re-released the game for current-gen consoles under the banner of the Outer Worlds Spacers Edition, maybe things have changed. This iteration of the game includes everything into one cohesive package souped up for the new generation of consoles and PC. And I'm using the term souped up in a very generous fashion, because my experience with the Outer Worlds Spacer's Choice Edition has been filled with all sorts of performance issues and crashes that result in underwhelming experiences. The Outer Worlds begins with the player waking from a years-long cryosleep by one wanted scientist named Dr. Phineas Wells. The game doesn't waste much time with its exposition, and you're quickly thrust into the thick of it as you begin your adventure to free the remainder of Hope's colonists, which should theoretically solve all of Halcyon's long-standing problems. Though the narrative quickly starts to branch into a ton of different tangents not too long after. The developers have crafted a decent setting, with this rather minimalistic setup, and it tends to give precedence to morally great characters over the tried and tested formula of good versus bad. The main quest is punctuated with tasks that require you to engage with the personal matters of different factions throughout Halcyon, and each of these factions have their equal shares of good and bad, while being clearly distinct from one another. Some quests require making a decision of siding with one faction over the other, but those decisions are far and few between to be considered the norm, rather than the exception. Furthermore, you can also pursue certain faction quests after these decisions have been made to restore your reputation back to normal, which makes this particular mechanic feel a lot more unforgiving than it needs to. Your player character is mostly just a blank slate, and you get to define your personality through the many actions that you will be taking during your adventure. You can choose to be a morally upright person who tries to do everything right, or be the man with a silver tongue who uses the art of persuasion and dishonesty to achieve your goals, or even become an opportunist who would give up everything and everyone for the right price. One thing I liked about the dialogue system is that the options locked behind player stats aren't always the best of the bunch, which forces you to actually read through the conversations before going through with a choice. Much like its many inspirations, companion characters also play an important role in this journey. They will aid you in combat, but you can also tackle specific companion quests for better understanding of their backstories, or help them in pursuing certain interests. All in all, The Outer Worlds puts forth a story that might not be on the level of popular games in the genre, but it certainly has its charm that should keep you interested in what happens next. The developer has done a decent job of crafting a vast world that you can explore at your own pace. It's not a seamless open world, and different sections and settlements in each planet are punctuated by loading screens, which happen to be much snappier pace thanks to the SSD of PS5 technology. The planet of Monarch feels a lot different than Terra 2, thanks to varied flora and fauna. And these two planets feel a lot different than Scylla, which features a moon-like surface on account of it being an asteroid. While there's no shortage of side quests to pursue within these spaces, the chances of coming across something interesting through exploration alone is pretty rare. The Outer Worlds features a standard first-person shooting system where your player stats and damage output are as crucial as your mechanical skills with a weapon of your choice. You have a time dilation ability which slows down time and allows you to target weak points on your enemies for extra damage. Your companions will also aid you in battle, and you can use their special abilities like a hammer smash or a drop kick for some serious damage. Furthermore, you are also given the option to alter their behavior to be as aggressive or passive on the battlefield as you want them to be, so you do get plenty of dials to fine-tune in tactical aspects of the combat. You also get plenty of weapons to collect during your adventure, but most of them are repeat variants of the same handful of weapon types with different stats or ammo types. Progression in the Outer Worlds is also pretty standard stuff, with little in the name of distinguishing factors. Each skill point gives you 10 points to invest in stats like hacking, dialogue, science, or defense. Perks allow you to equip permanent buffs like increased health or increased sprint speed through separate trees for you and your companions. There's the Signature Flaws system, which gives you the option to trade a permanent debuff for an extra perk point, but I never felt the need to engage with that system since I was always ahead of the power curve during my playthrough. And that results in combat feeling too easy, at least on the normal difficulty provided you spend a bit of your time to thoroughly collect resources and loot. Enemy AI hasn't seen much of a difference from the launch version, so you can still easily hide behind cover and pick entire squads of enemies off one by one from a safe distance. In addition to this, the enemy variety also feels lacking for an RPG of this scale, and the combat starts to run its due course as you reach the conclusion of the game. Between this and the fact that there isn't much of an endgame component in the Outer Worlds, there's little reason to grind and reach the new level cap of 99. Thankfully, the DLCs don't really focus much on the combat, and instead shift the game's focus on other aspects like investigating a mystery. But they still require you to get past a certain point in the main quest to access, and this feels like a missed opportunity. The developers could have implemented a system where players would have the option to start the DLCs with an appropriately leveled character from the get-go, instead of having to work through a sizable chunk of the campaign to be able to access this content. It's not like the DLCs are connected to the main story in any meaningful way, which makes the absence of such an accessibility feature all the more egregious in this version. The Outer Worlds Spacers Edition does very little to entice returning players for another playthrough. There's no extra content in this version to speak of, and the quality of life upgrades are also pretty shoddy. The texture quality seems almost identical to the original with muddy textures and inconsistently detailed character models, and the draw distance for the environments is still low, which results in visible pop-ins most open areas. The performance in the PS5 version is all over the place. I mostly stuck to the 60 FPS performance mode, and I frequently saw slowdowns during intensive combat, and also while exploring the planet. Furthermore, I also experienced multiple crashes during my time with the game, and this can add up to make for a pretty frustrating experience after a while. In conclusion, the Outer Worlds Spacers Edition ends up being a half-baked package that doesn't really justify its price tag. Whatever minuscule upgrades have been done to the experience don't really amount to much in the grand scheme of things, and with performance issues galore, Spacers Edition isn't the definitive edition of the game that it's clearly trying to be. It's an easy pass for those who have already played through the game and its DLCs, and those who haven't played it, they might be better off sticking to other better games in the genre. Hey, did you know that we at Gaming Bolt upload new videos every day? Stick around, drop a like, subscribe, and hit that bell, and let us know what kind of content you'd like to see in the future with a comment below.